All right. And I am going to set us up, hopefully, to get on Facebook here. I'm going to share to our event. Okay, and I don't know if you guys see up on your screens, but it is letting us know that we're connecting. Awesome. We'll see what this does. We'll see how it goes. Go live. All right. So first and foremost, I want to thank everybody for being a part of this event today. I know in the times of COVID and hospital policy changes and moving or whatever else is going on, there has just been kind of a slow place of not knowing where to get information or what information is even relevant based on what you're finding online. So thank you for joining us. I first want to introduce the Central Coast Childbirth Network. The Central Coast Childbirth Network is the group that is putting this on. We are a nonprofit on the Central Coast of California, and our mission is to provide a diverse network of birth and wellness professionals who are committed to informing, educating, and advocating for the individual needs of all families on the Central Coast, from preconception through the first year of parenting. So if you are not familiar with the Central Coast Childbirth Network, we have a website that has a ton of local resources available for families for anything from lactation support to mental health and wellness, fitness professionals, and then of course our midwives, doulas, and other providers in different medical fields. So if you would like to get connected with any resources, feel free to go to centralcoastchildbirthnetwork.com at any time. And we are always available to reach out if there's resources you're looking for that you don't find on that website as well. I'm going to get started with introducing our doulas, and then we will get into some questions about doula services. So my name is Alexandra Klein. I am a certified doula. I am a newly certified doula, so I only have a few births under my belt, but I have felt a true passion and calling for what I do, and I am so thankful for the families I've been able to serve. Next up, I'm going to turn it over to Ashley. Ashley Doust is a doula with Birth Within Doula. Ashley, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, I'm a mom of 4, a grandma. I've been passionate about birth work for about 19 years now, and I certified with Childbirth International. I specialize in VBAC, Cesarean, and home birth support. And I'm currently on my way to getting my bereavement certification as well as my baby wearing education certification, so I can help teach families the safety and the amazing benefits that baby wearing has here on the Central Coast.
Yes, awesome. Thank you so much. Baby wearing, I'm so excited for what you're going to bring to the Central Coast within that realm, because it is a lifesaver for families, and knowing how to do it efficiently makes it so much easier to actually have your baby enjoy it as well. So
yes,
excited to see what you're bringing in 2021.
Thank you.
Awesome. Next up, I'm going to introduce Lauren DePaul. Lauren, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your certification?
Yes, so I am working on my certification through SLO Birth and Doula Collective, which has been so amazing and exciting to get to know some of the birth community here in the Central Coast. And every time I go into a training or reconnect with someone, it's just such a wonderful feeling of purpose and groundedness and community. I'm very excited to be part of it. So we've got working on my certification as a birth doula with them. And you can find me, my website is thelavenderdoula.com.
Awesome. I'm so excited to have you here. And I know every time we've connected for these events, just your excitement to be a part of this makes me so excited. We'll all be excited. I love just the passion that you're bringing to the table. And I think that it's really great for the families we have here on the Central Coast. Next up, Sarah Eckert, can you tell us, I hope I pronounced the last name right, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and about your services here on the Central Coast? There we go. We'll get you unmuted real quick. There we go. We see you.
There we go. My name is Sarah, and I was born and raised here on the Central Coast. And but I did happen to have both. I have two kids, and they were both born in Las Vegas. I think initially I wanted to. I had a real passion for lactation education, and it kind of went more into the doula area. So I'm in the certification process with the SLO Birth and Doula Collective. And I plan to do the postpartum education in February.
Awesome. It's so funny that you say you really started with your focus in lactation and then found your way to being a doula, because I think similarly for me, you want to focus on this one area, and then you start to realize how much every little thing impacts the final product. So it's like, well, if I just start with the prenatal planning and help a family through that, then the lactation may be that much easier to manage and to handle with the family.
Yeah, I found that to be true. I had, I didn't plan on nursing very long, and then I realized I was going to have a VBAC, and it just kind of, like you said, it just kind of all melts together.
Yes, awesome. And I'm excited to hear that you are a fellow VBAC mom as well. I know I am. Ashley, you had your VBAC as well, correct? So I feel like that's
After 3 C-sections.
yeah.
Nice. That's amazing.
So amazing. And I feel like just sharing that information and giving other women who may be interested in it a little bit of hope that, hold on, wait, that's still a thing? I can do that? So
I think one detail I wanted to add to is I've done one birth and towards my certification, and it was a VBAC home birth, and it was 100% successful and most amazing thing ever.
So fabulous. Which midwife group was that with?
The Santa Lucia.
Okay. Fabulous.
Santa Lucia? Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the Santa Lucia Birth Center. Do you remember which midwife was the provider?
Michelle.
Okay.
And I can't remember the other.
Okay. Awesome. Exciting though. Congratulations getting that first one done and a home birth VBAC. That's exciting. So awesome. Last up, I'm going to have Victoria. If you could give us a little bit of information about yourself and about where you are in your certification process.
Unmuting. That's going to get me. Hi. Okay. So my name is Victoria Carranza, and yeah, my business is called The Gardening Doula. As far as on my certification process, since you asked about that first, Alexandra, so I am working towards certification. And with that, I'm looking at certifying in birth doula work first, even though actually right now I'm in a 6-month postpartum care program. So it's not just for doulas, but for all types of healing practitioners. And so I definitely would like to work on both sides of that world, and the birthing and the postpartum. And so similar to Sarah, I actually started my doula journey not jumping right into the doula stuff. It was the lactation education counseling. So I have a 3-year-old, and she's my only one. I had successfully breastfed her, and we went on to breastfeed for a little over 2 years. And it was this like, oh, like I want to do more, not necessarily with more chest feeding people help and support, because for me, I felt like I had a pretty just successful experience from the start. But when I started to look into it and would talk to other people, I just was like, wow, I really feel passionate about this, not just as a nutrition value, but also for a mothering technique for myself. So that's kind of where I started. And then it went on to getting I took a course with Binny Birth in LA, and it's a DONA certified trainer. So I'm getting certified through DONA, just because that's the trajectory.
Awesome. Victoria, I'm not sure what's happening. Your internet seems to be hopping around a little bit. I'm going to grab the screen from you and we'll kind of move into our event. And if you have anything to add once your internet kind of catches back up, we'll get you back in there, Victoria. So the first thing we're going to talk about is, and any doula who wants to jump in can share, but what is a doula and what do doulas not do? Does anyone want to take that first off?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and go. So a doula is a labor support person. So they work with birthing family during their pregnancy, labor, birth, and postpartum time. There are doulas that do specialize in postpartum. There are doulas that specialize in bereavement, but for labor and birth doulas, they support the birthing family throughout their birthing journey. They offer emotional, physical, and informational support, and really tailor their space holding to the family's needs. There are some kind of streamlined things that doulas do on a general basis, but beyond that, it's really unique to each birthing family's needs. Doulas do not perform any kind of medical tasks. They do not check fetal heart tones. They do not take blood pressure. They do not administer Pitocin if there's hemorrhaging involved. They really just with the birthing person and sit by their side or sit back and let them have their journey. So that is what a doula does and does not do.
Awesome, thank you. And I think you highlighted recently on your business Instagram page, I know you had highlighted the postpartum doula support you were providing for a family. And I loved all of the tidbits that you outlined because it is so different for every family, and depending on where you're jumping in with that client, you know, you have to really mold yourself to the needs of that specific family.
Definitely. Yep.
Yeah. Awesome. Lauren, did you have something you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, I wanted to add to the what doulas do not. One of the things that I hear misconceptions about from people who have heard of doulas but still aren't entirely sure what they are is that the doula is not going to speak for you. They're not just for a natural birth or any particular kind of birth. A doula does not make any decisions for you, push decisions anyway, and they're not going to talk to a provider or push anything on your behalf. They're going to help you find your voice and ask you the questions, give you the space to speak and make your own decisions.
Yeah, and I think that's important and something I struggled with a little bit, or something that I, as a doula, have had to kind of figure out my role and how I hold on to that, especially with where we are as a country, as a community, with some of the maternal issues and fetal issues that we have when our clients aren't heard, right? So we do have to find a very good balance of helping our client find their voice, of protecting them, their wishes, their well-being. And so while we don't, you know, direct care or anything like that in a birth setting, I think reaffirming for families that we would be there, or I could speak for myself, I myself would be there to vocalize that you may need a minute to review some things with your partner, or you may need a minute for us to talk about what you had previously decided on or hoped for. And so while we will not interject ourselves in your health plan with your medical provider, reassuring you and giving you that space, like Lauren was saying, to really let your mind settle and understand what you're doing, what the next step is, and if that's something you really are comfortable with going forward with. Sarah, you were popping on a minute ago. Did you have something you wanted to add to all of that?
I think just adding to what you were just saying about needing a minute to process and make a decision is a super important line, quote unquote, line to have in the hospital. And just telling everybody, you know, if this is not a life and death situation, this moment, I need 5 minutes. And I think that's from what I have seen, it's really respected when somebody says that, so.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you for reconfirming that and kind of seeing the same. That makes me happy to hear. Next up, let's talk about what are different types of doula. I know we briefly talked about, you know, there's the postpartum doula, there's a birth doula. What are some other doula roles that you all plan to take on or that you know of? And what are some of the additional benefits of a doula? Victoria, would you like to take that one?
Sure, and I hope my connection's better this time.
Yes,
Yeah. Well, I know that we were talking a little bit before we jumped on the recording. A couple of us just took a bereavement doula workshop, actually. And so that lends itself to the first thing I have in mind is supporting people as a doula through loss. And that could be through a client that's going through and healing from an abortion or needs help during it. It could be from a miscarriage, even to fostering and adoption. I've seen that be something that doulas can support. And then there's the other life cycle, the end of it. End of life doulas have become something that are now being talked about a lot. And there is an end of life doula volunteer group here in our county. So.
Yes, thank you so much for highlighting so many different capacities that a doula can serve in. And of course, it's up to each doula what you're comfortable with, right? And what you've gone through training with or different things like that. So I myself am not trained in bereavement doula services. So I wouldn't be the person to go to, but to know that there are services available. And I think you highlighting abortion and miscarriage, that is often a phase of this life cycle that is overlooked or that is tucked under the rug and, you know, just pull up your bootstraps and keep on going. And that's not what it is. And that's
well, and it's not only stigmatized, but I did want to mention too, that it seems as though postpartum support is only really looked at for people who have a baby on the other side. And it's not. Postpartum is a journey and it's about, you know, healing the body no matter what the pregnancy outcome is. So absolutely. I just want to mention that.
Yeah, I was, when I first started getting involved in more birth work for myself and then as on this side of things, I started going through a lot of videos and training through BirthFit, which is an international group, and they've put some great information out there if you're ever looking for blog resources or anything else. But their rule of thumb was however far along you are in your pregnancy, that is at least how long you need to give your body to recover postpartum. And that goes for abortion, miscarriage, anything else. So I know our modern day society likes to, you know, well, you made it to that 6-week appointment, let's bounce right on back. And I'm a firm advocate that I'm like, no, I want 2 years to fully recover over here. I'm waving my white flag. I don't want that 6-week benchmark or anything else. Give me 2 years and then I'm good to go. But so keeping in mind for people who, you know, make it to that 8-month, 9-month full term and then have something happen, your body deserves at least that much time to recover and for your mind and your emotional well-being. So, you know, I think that's really important and I appreciate you for bringing those things up. Who here helps with any doula services outside of just a birth and postpartum doula? So if you do manage any bereavement doula services or any others, why don't you pop in and let us know what services you provide and anything else you want to add.
I have done some bereavement doula work. both with miscarriage and abortion. And I actually, when I was a teenager, you know, I got pregnant with my first baby when I was 16 years old, and I had a couple friends in high school who also had got pregnant. And for me, I obviously carried my baby to term. I made that decision for myself, but my friends, it wasn't something that was what they had wanted their future to be. And, you know, just because I didn't make that choice for myself, as a aspiring doula, even so long ago, I really decided that I needed to show up and be there for these people, because, you know, they were not telling their parents, and they were not telling any of their other friends. They related to me because I was a teen and I had been pregnant. And so, you know, it really was fulfilling to be able to be my friends' support people during that time, because, you know, especially with miscarriage and even abortion, the process of losing your baby is not just like a heavy period or something that takes a couple days to happen and then you can get right back to normal. Your body was pregnant and now it's not. And that's exactly the way that it is if you were to be pregnant and have a live birth. It doesn't matter what the outcome is, you were pregnant and then you're not. And so emotionally and mentally, you need to be able to have that support, but physically as well. And, you know, to be able to provide people with that space being held for them so they can really process everything that is going on, and the decisions that they've either had to make or decisions that were made for them. You know, it's really some pretty heavy heart work, but I myself went through a miscarriage, and I wish that I had thought to reach out to someone, a bereavement doula, for that kind of support. And just like Victoria was saying, you know, there is this huge stigma that's around even miscarriage. And, you know, nobody asks for that to happen to them. So who's going to show up for you? Society isn't. And usually your OBs won't either. They're there to say, I'm sorry, and here's a prescription for some ibuprofen, go home and rest, and you're good to go in 2 days, you know? And so being able to have someone there to support you is really crucial and very, very important, as well as with postpartum work too. A lot of people, like you were saying, 6 weeks, all right, you're good to go, bye. But no, I'm 19, 8, 4, and 2 years postpartum, and I still need support. There's still work to be done. And, you know, I feel fortunate to have a partner that is there to support me, and I have a few friends there to support me as well. But I couldn't imagine what my postpartum time would be like if I didn't have someone at my side lifting me up, reminding me, drink your water, slow down, take a breath, take a bath, let me take your child for you. You know, it's important to have that kind of support.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you so much for sharing. And, you know, I think it's so great that you were able to be that person for your friends, but at the same time, so scary. And my heart goes out to them so much, even though it was years ago, because that is such a hard and heavy place to be and to have to go through. And, you know, it's just, I'm so appreciative that you're the person you are. Lauren, you had piped in, or you were getting ready to share with us as well, other specialties that you offer, and what that looks like.
Yes. Oh, now the clocks are going to chime. Okay. So I have a bereavement training for birth workers in general under my belt, and I do plan to get certified in it, because I think that's something that can't be overlooked, and people shouldn't have to go through alone either. They need support and they need love just as much, if not more, during that time. So do have my bereavement training on my site, and we'll be certifying in that, as well as I think Sarah mentioned earlier, there's a training locally in February for postpartum doula certification. I'll be participating in that as well.
Fabulous. Thank you so much, Lauren. Victoria, did you want to add to the specialties that we offer? I saw your mic had been unmuted.
Yeah, sure. Well, and it kind of goes with my introduction because Zoom kicked me off. So right now, I mentioned earlier that I am training in postpartum care, and it's a 6-month program. It's through this group. The mentor of mine is in New Mexico, Rochelle Saliga, and it's called Innate Traditions. And so that's something that is its own type of certification process. It's not through a sponsored group like Kappa or DONA, but I feel really deeply connected to it because the mentor, she specializes in things like permaculture and just the overall pretense that mothers and women are indicator species. And if they're not being supported and taken care of, then the family is going to have some dis-ease, not a disease, but a dis-ease. And then it's like our community and society. And so it compounds on itself, right? But yeah, that's just something, I mean, the birth, it's such a raw thing and a very finite time period, but the postpartum is just this continuum of a life's journey. I even talked to my mother-in-law about physical therapy stuff in her pelvic floor, and her baby's 40 years old now. So it's a process.
Yeah, and I think that's great that you shared that too, because so many people, like we said, it's 6 weeks postpartum and then you're not postpartum anymore, or a year postpartum and then you're not really postpartum anymore. You have a toddler, like, what are you talking about? No, you literally are postpartum the rest of your life. Like you don't go back to not being
Yeah,
postpartum.
It's not, I mean, I don't know if it's a generational thing, but I heard somebody think that postpartum is just about a mood disorder.
Yes, I've heard that reference too. I had postpartum. And no, we don't have postpartum. You may have postpartum depression, or you may have postpartum anxieties or other postpartum related issues, but you have postpartum for the rest of your life because that's just where you are after you give birth. And I think too, like you were saying about connecting with your mother-in-law, yeah, it doesn't matter. If you are having issues with pelvic floor incontinence, pain with sex, any sort of prolapse issues or anything else, all of those things can be, not necessarily always, but all those things can be attributed to a postpartum journey. And you can get help too. We have some really good pelvic floor physical therapists here in town, some really good chiropractors, acupuncturists, all sorts of holistic medicine, and Western medicine too, where you can get care and not just put a Band-Aid on the issue and get by for a couple months, but actually fix what's going on. So Ashley, I see you're wanting to speak up here.
Yeah, just moving into some of the other type of doula and doula support that there is, there's labor and birth, we got postpartum, there's bereavement, but then there's also VBAC and Cesarean doulas as well. And some just only work in that field, but it's not uncommon to come across a doula like myself, where I have certified as a VBAC doula through the VBAC link, and support and specialize in VBAC support, which really lends to a very specific type of space being held for them. You shouldn't really approach a VBAC birth differently physiologically than you would any other type of birth, but you do emotionally and mentally need to approach it way differently than someone who's never had a cesarean before. And so, it's just really important to have that training and that focus, especially if you've never had a VBAC or a cesarean. And then with the cesarean support as well, another thing that I specialize in, I've had, my first was an unplanned cesarean, what they would call an emergency C-section. My second was a repeat C-section, and my third was a TOLAC, home TOLAC, transfer to hospital. I begged for a C-section. So, you know, I've been through the gamut of all of that, but I do remember at my second birth feeling really unprepared and kind of a little scared and really lonely. And even though I'd been through a C-section before, but it was completely different than my first, of course. And with this one, I had like 2 hours I had to wait, doing vitals and getting in the gown and doing all this stuff. And then they wheel you into the operating room and you're there doing what you need to do there. And to just be able to have that extra support, letting you know that, you know, remember that this is okay. Your baby will be fine. You will get to meet your baby soon. And just reminding them that you're just, someone is there. And I wish I had had that at all of my C-sections, but most especially at my repeat C-section. And so, you know, the passion is there for me to be able to hold that space for those families. And I have been, I have supported families in the operating room. And again, it's a different kind of level of support, and something that I feel every doula who is taking a labor and birth certification course should go through and touch on extensively.
Absolutely. I think
so, yeah.
you were saying about, you know, how amazing it would have been to have that support as you were going through your cesarean. And I remember as I was unwinding mine and unwinding the trauma and issues that I had as a result of my cesarean, I remember saying, I just wish someone would have been with me, talking me through. The doctors, the nurses are focused on their job. The husband, my husband at least, was taking pictures and was like kind of petting my head, but he was watching what was going on. The birth of his baby was happening.
Right.
You know, and he was a little bit distracted or didn't really know. We didn't know. It was our first time. We didn't know what I was going to need. And so had I had a doula in that circumstance, she would have known what I needed most likely before I did. And she would have helped be that barrier to allow me to cope with it a little bit better. So thank you for touching on that. We're going to move.
Or he. Yeah.
What was that?
I said, or he or they. There are all kinds of doulas. Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. So next up, I want to talk about, in the time of COVID, we've had to go to a lot of virtual doula support services, or we've had to at least be aware that that could be something a client requested or that a hospital policy imposed. Here on the Central Coast, we have moved to where our local hospitals are allowing doulas back in. We hope and are praying and are fighting tooth and nail that if COVID cases should be on the rise, that hopefully our clients and our doulas are not impacted by that, and we can still have the doula support alongside the partner or spouse or whomever a birthing person chooses to take with them. But we will still highlight, just in case there are folks looking for doula support services. What does virtual doula services look like in the time of COVID? Anyone want to jump in on that?
There really are two different kinds of virtual doula support that can happen. The first being the most common in our area, which is still doing prenatals and postpartum in-person labor support at home before heading to the hospital. And then while the birthing family is at the hospital, you are available via text message, phone call, Zoom or FaceTime. I even Marco Polo'd some of my clients a couple times and they Marco Polo'd me back. So, you know, that's what we've generally seen here on the Central Coast as far as virtual support goes. However, that doesn't go without saying that there hasn't been the other kind of virtual support, which is exclusive virtual support. So all of the prenatals, all of the postpartum, and the entire duration of the labor and birth is done virtually, whether that's on Zoom, Google Meets, FaceTime, whatever Android has for their FaceTime. I don't know what that is, but it's all virtual. And so, you know, generally speaking, whatever you would be doing in person, you would just be doing virtually, with the exception of really preparing and giving the partner or whoever is going to be that person's one visitor, their safe person that they're going to have by their side throughout the whole process, a doula crash course. So doulas will, you know, teach as much as they can to that partner in as many meetings as it takes, really, so that the person who's going to be there with the birthing person in person is able to have that hands-on support and knowledge that is necessary for and unique and tailored to whoever is giving birth. So that's typically the two types of virtual services that are around.
Yeah, and I think it's beautiful that you touched on the option, because again, like we talked about in the very beginning, right? A doula's job is to tailor the program to the specific needs of that client and family. And so just like any other birth or doula services, we would tailor to what that family needs. And if that means they want the in-person support as much as they can up until they walk through those hospital doors, then I will be holding your hand as we walk up to those hospital doors. If it means that you are not comfortable with that, then we can 100% do completely virtual support.
Yeah.
I'm going to move into, next up I have, what does a doula do before birth? And so I know we talked about that a little bit, about some prenatal appointments and things like that. Sarah, can you tell us a little bit more about what those prenatal appointments would look like, or what care before birth looks like?
Sure. So for me, a prenatal appointment would look like exploring what previous births had been like for them, trying to figure out if there was any residual trauma. I didn't realize I had birth trauma till about 6 or 9 months later. So, you know, processing that. And I think that for me, that would be the first thing, you know, because I think fear is probably the first thing that they're thinking of. So working through that, and then maybe creating a better birth plan, things that they would prefer this time, and how it would look different compared to the first one, to meet whatever goals they might have.
Great. I think one of the things too, as a doula in those prenatal appointments that we look for, if there is trauma or if there is any sort of discomfort with the idea of, well, the only way to get this baby out is through birth, so how are we doing this, is we can also refer, right? This is where we really start to build that relationship and understand what the birthing person is feeling, what the family is feeling, and so we may refer them out to a mental health specialist or a therapist, or if they are already having discomfort, prolapse type of issues, we may refer them out to a pelvic floor therapist. If they are having extreme pubic discomfort, we could refer them to a local Webster certification or Webster certified chiropractor. And so one of our jobs, or at least for myself, one of the roles I take on in those prenatal appointments is really making sure that they're getting the care that they need in all different areas, and not just in, you know, the physiological side of things that are to come. We want to make sure that we're building that relationship with the clients for what they need right now to make later more smooth for them, right?
Yes, and I think it's just as important for their support people too. It's traumatizing for a partner to see their partner going into an emergency C-section, and now if, you know, they're trying a VBAC or you know, a home birth, it's going to look a lot different. And you know, it's just about being as prepared as you can. And I mean, that's what for my first birth, that was definitely lacking. I just thought it was going to go like this and, a certain way. And it
Just show up and it just happens, right?
Yeah. They went absolutely the complete opposite. And so I think preparing for every scenario is super important for everybody involved.
Yeah, and I think, again, that's so important that you touched on that, because I feel like there, at least with some of my local friends that have become pregnant or are on their, second, third pregnancy, there becomes this discomfort with the idea of a birth plan, or this like, well, it never goes according to plan, so I'm not even going to worry about that. But I think understanding that there is knowledge gained, and there is, you have a period of time when you're pregnant where you can begin to understand different options that could occur. And best case scenario, what do I want? Of course, we all want healthy mom or healthy birthing person and healthy baby. That literally is the bare minimum though. And if that's all we're worried about providing, then that is horrendous. So if we know that that's the bare minimum and we want to do better than that, let's talk about options. Let's talk about, if you are planning a second, third, fourth cesarean, what do you want? Do you want immediate skin to skin? Do you want a clear drape? Do you want to potentially help pull your baby out if that's an option? Like, there are things that we can advocate for. And while I know that's not everyone's cup of tea, if I knew that my only option was another cesarean with my third birth, I would have wanted all of that. And so by going through these birth plans and reaching out to your local hospital or your local birth center or talking with your midwife, you start to understand what your options are. And then you can go ahead and advocate for yourself or create that birth plan to really have the best options for you as they unfold, because we know birth can go really slow and then all of a sudden it doesn't anymore, and then we have a baby in our arms or whatever is going on, and it's like, okay, well, I don't have time or the brain capacity to figure out what I want to do right now. So yes, thank you for touching on that as well, the importance of a birth plan and of the knowledge that can come from that. Next up, I feel like we've already highlighted it pretty well, but I would like to briefly touch on what does a doula do during labor and birth, and what does a doula do immediately after birth. So not talking so much about prenatal or postpartum appointments, but that immediate, golden hour, the first couple of hours, what does that look like? Lauren, do you want to chat about that a little bit?
Yes. So we're starting during labor and birth, right? And then into immediately after. So you're not going to be doing as much as the informational support anymore. It's all going to be emotional and physical. If you can be there in person, it's helping people find position changes that are going to keep labor moving or get the birthing person more comfortable. And emotional support, the moments where it does get scary, it's getting more intense, and how to help them flow with it and move through the process. And sometimes it's just being a calm presence in the room. It's not necessarily massaging and encouraging or deep breathing. It can move through all of those things. And then right after the birth, it will continue to be kind of with the emotional and physical support in helping the family make sure they get the space they need to start bonding, and just checking in on how everyone's feeling immediately after, continuing to address comfort measures as well if the birthing person might be having hemorrhaging or shaking, or the nurses are doing fundal massage and they're like, what's going on? Why are you touching me? Then it's continuing with maybe a little bit more of the close-up support. And once all those things are settled, it's clear that the birthing person is healthy, the baby is healthy, then it's helping create space for them to bond, just the two of them or three of them, whoever's there. And hopefully helping initialize breastfeeding, getting that first colostrum feeding in as soon as the baby is moving and getting ready for it, because that'll help the bonding and help the recovery to begin for the birthing person as well.
Awesome. I think you touched on something that's really important. Sometimes a doula's job is just to sit there and bring calm. Sometimes we just need to be that face for the partner or spouse or the soon-to-be grandmother or soon-to-be grandfather or whomever is in the room. We just need to be that person that they can look at with a little bit of like what is going on in their eyes, and we can say, she's okay, or he's okay, they're fine, it's okay, this is what's happening. They're in this place of birth. Remember, we already talked about this, and this is what we wanted, and this is what we're moving towards. And we can just be that presence. And there's some families that you may just be that presence throughout the entire process, but you talk to them in the postpartum and they're like, oh my gosh, you were so helpful. And you're like, I just kind of hung out. Like, I watched you give birth. I watched your partner support you. And that's what they need. And so with your specialized plan for that family, that's all you needed to do. But again, that support is so important. And, you know, I think a couple of other things that I know I have done in births, and if anyone else has anything to add, is in the immediate postpartum is making sure that there's food, making sure that birthing person is getting some sort of shake or a meal or some snacks right after to start nourishing the body again. And the other thing that you had highlighted a little bit was making sure that the space or the room is kind of creating the right atmosphere. And so sometimes if there's too many people there, it's also giving people jobs that require them to get out of the room. You know, mom is going to need a wash rag, or the birthing person is really wanting ice chips right now. Can we go ahead and get those things for them? The most recent birth I had a little girl, a big sister, first time big sister. And so she just wanted to be right there. But mom needs to get checked up. Mom needs to, you know, check for any tearing or anything else. So midwife has to get in there and really assess things. And so it's like, okay, why don't you come help me? And we're going to go in the other room and we're going to make sure that the diapers are all ready. We need to get a diaper. So, you know, sometimes, especially for families where this is a second, third, or more birth, it's getting the rest of the family involved in the capacity that best supports the birthing person and the new baby. Victoria, did you have something to add to that?
Yeah, as I was listening to Lauren's like description of kind of the transition from labor to birth and then post, just immediately after. So I was thinking of primal and like the thinking and non-thinking brain of the birthing person. And so hopefully the doula has done prenatal appointments and prepared the client and the birthing partner with some things like those breathing techniques Lauren was talking about, and non-clinical comfort measures, you know, that we would recommend. And sometimes you pull them out and we try things on during the actual labor, but sometimes we'll talk about that in the beginning, and it's great because you have those toolboxes set up before the person's like in that primal state, and it's like, oh yeah, I think maybe I need to move, because I've done a support for a mother at a hospital, and it's almost like they didn't have permission. They didn't feel like they had permission to go do that thing. But maybe if there was more, you know, it's like, okay, so remember, like, you're allowed to, you know, and just asking and reminding them, like, you're allowed, and just promoting that self-advocacy during it. So anyways, sometimes they don't even want to talk. And so asking questions and maybe empowering the birthing person to say, is there something you could do here? Or would you mind grabbing that? And just holding the space and kind of, I think it's, they should be getting to a ritual, you know, in the laboring process. So I don't know, I was just thinking about that going on. And sometimes people and family that want to come visit and stuff, they entered a energy field that they have no idea what to do, you know.
Ashley, did you want to add to that?
Yeah, another brief thing that I think is somewhat important is to, and this is something that I do after every birth, whether it's in the hospital, birth center, or at a home birth, is to check in with the partner and make sure that they are doing okay, that they're hydrated. And I do this throughout the labor process as well. But usually, as you all know, once transition happens and pushing begins, it's kind of like they usually want their partner right here. You can't move. You can't touch me. You can't say anything. You can't eat. Don't eat. You're not allowed to eat. You can't eat. I need to eat, but I can't eat. So, you know, I check in with them and I make sure that they're hydrated, that they, you know, need a snack. Maybe they need to sit down and have a quick rest and just kind of take it all in for a second without all of these other people around them. And that gives me an opportunity to kind of check in and just allow them that period of restfulness, because, you know, of course, depending on your family's dynamic, usually the papa is going to be up in the middle of the night changing the diapers and doing all of that. And so they need a minute to just kind of sit down. So I think it's important to check in with them as well, because, you know, for the most part, you are supporting the birthing person, but it's also important to support their partner and whoever else is a part of their birth team as well. Because you're not, you know, you're there for everybody and holding space for everybody, not just.
Well, and I think it's important to highlight that, you know, whoever is pregnant is adjusting to the idea that a baby is coming out of their body and their body is changing, and the hormones and the emotions, we're making those adjustments for 10 months or so. The support people that are there, the partners, the spouses, they're adjusting to the idea, but they don't have those physical, hormonal, emotional changes to feel it. And then you see a baby and it's like, oh my gosh, we really were pregnant. There really is a baby. There's this whole new phase of life we're going in, and it can be kind of a rush of emotions and perhaps some anxiety and some different things going on, because now all of a sudden it's real. And so I think that checking in is very important. And that is with like a super smooth delivery and there aren't any complications. You know, there isn't any liquid adjustment or things that we're seeing that they can't unsee that they're struggling to cope with. That's like bare minimum. They just came in and realized, oh man, there's another life that has just entered the world. So yeah, that check-in period is very important for the birthing person and for their support people. So thank you for highlighting that too. Next up, we're going to move into, how does a doula work with me if I am planning a hospital birth for a cesarean specifically? So we've touched on this a little bit just through conversation, but is there anything else that we should highlight or walk through on the cesarean doula support? I know Ashley has experience. Before Ashley gets in.
Well, I mean, the first thing that comes to mind is around cesarean. I actually did have a friend ask me, I don't think doulas are needed for cesareans, right? Like she had said that. And I go, whew, okay, well, you know, I had pulled out some information from evidence-based birth, actually, around VBAC and cesarean, because she had already had a C-section with her first one, and she's pregnant, considering the options. And we talked a lot about skin to skin and measures that she could take, and promoting self-advocacy in the birthing, or not the birthing room, but the surgical room, even if she didn't have a doula. So like, what kinds of things could she advocate to the doctors and the clinicians? Super important.
Yeah, Ashley, do you want to kind of to go with that? I'll briefly say before I turn it over, I know that especially for someone, I really get frustrated for people who want to go for a VBAC, who are told that they might be allowed to. Their hospital might allow them to do that. Their doctor might allow them to do that. They can try a toe lock. There's already so much doubt that comes along with those things. So finding providers, finding a hospital staff, or finding a birth center or a midwife who does home birth, who doesn't even use that language. Like, you're going for your VBAC. Okay, we're gonna do a VBAC, and these are the things we're gonna do to prepare for that. Of course, there's the availability, or there is the potential that that could not happen, but we're not even gonna like breathe that into the atmosphere. We're gonna create such a great space for you where you're confident in your abilities. Your team is confident in your abilities. We're doing the spinning babies and acupuncture and chiropractic care or whatever else to stabilize your body and to get your body as relaxed as possible to encourage a VBAC. And so I think one of the first things I would say, Victoria, for your friend who's asking like, where do I start or what do I do, is first you change providers as many times as you need to until you find the provider that is going to do the right job for you. And I don't care if that means you're changing providers at 36, 37 weeks. If that's when they throw up a big red flag, then that's when you change, because your provider and where you birth have a massive impact on your outcomes.
Yeah, there's a lot of subconscious influences that are occurring there. Yeah. And not to say we're advising against medical care in the least bit, because that's not what we do, but asking, well, they're working for you. You are getting health care. And so you need to ask these questions and see if, yeah, like you said, that's going to be the right fit for what you were wanting to do with your own body.
Yeah, absolutely. Ashley, do you want to speak on the cesarean birth and doula support a little bit more for us?
Yeah, so I think that it's really important to address the C-section in its entirety prenatally. Obviously, if a person is reaching out for doula support, they need the support, and they have some things that they have to process about it. I mean, there are plenty of people that choose to have a C-section, whether it's their first or their fifth, because they don't want to go through labor, or, you know, I've even heard of people who are planning a big trip and they need to make sure that they have their baby by a certain time, and that's great that that works for them. But the majority of people who are going in for a C-section, that wasn't their original plan, and generally isn't something that they want. And those are all things that need to be processed, regardless if your outcome is going to be a C-section anyway. Whether you're having a repeat C-section or you're having a C-section because you have prenatal conditions, preeclampsia, or HELP, or, you know, maybe something is going on with the baby, you know, those are all things that need to be processed, and processed with someone who has experience in that. And they need space held too, because cesarean birth is birth. It's not, I mean, it's surgery, but it's birth. It's surgical birth. And you're still giving birth to your baby. So that needs to be highlighted and recognized, but also whatever fears or guilt that the birthing person is carrying, choosing to or having to go with a C-section is really important to process. And in addition to that, especially if someone hasn't been through a C-section before, though I've been through 3, and each time I definitely needed to prepare for them and be reminded of the process. You know, that's just something that prenatally you would go through is what does surgical birth look like? What is it going to be like in the operating room? What are my options? What are my choices? Is it important that I find the right kind of care provider for me, even though I'm having a C-section? Absolutely. And so advocating for that as well. And then what I do with my C-section mamas is I set up their home for them. I have them go out and get supplies and get baskets and fill them with things that they're going to need: snacks, water, nursing pads, an extra nursing tank top because spit up happens, poop happens, and things for baby like a diaper, wipes, diaper cream, burp rags, an extra onesie for them because spit up and poop happen. You know, and especially if you're in a multi-level home, you know, you don't want to be, or you shouldn't be, going up and down the stairs several times a day, getting diapers and carrying your baby up the stairs. So having these stations set up around your house allows you to be able to just park it, rest, heal, and everything is within arm's reach for you. And so I do that prenatally with my C-section clients as well, getting them prepared for that immediate postpartum time while their incision is healing, because it can be pretty gnarly. And then in the hospital, in the operating room, you know, we still come up with birth preferences. We still come in with, you know, some of them just want a strictly surgical birth, and that's fine. That's great. Good for them. But some of them want to have options. I want delayed cord clamping. I want to have a clear drape or no drape. I want to be able to assist or have my partner assist in pulling baby out. I want to have music playing. I want dim lights. I don't need 3 surgical nurses in the operating room, because usually 1 or 2 of them are just observing. You know, there's a lot of options that they have in the operating room that not a lot of people are aware of. And that's what doulas do, is they help remind them of what their options are, have it clearly laid out, printed out, given to the OB, given to the nursing staff so that they're aware, and just reminding them throughout their birthing process in the operating room that they're okay, they're safe, they're being held, they're going to meet their baby soon. Yeah. And then obviously in the radical first few weeks of incision healing, really being there for them as well.
Absolutely. I think it's really important that you highlighted the importance of multi-level housing, or a large house. If your room is at one end of the house and your living room or wherever else the family resides is at the far opposite end of a 4,500 or 5,000 square foot house or whatever it is, no, especially for cesarean, right? It's
Yes.
already complicated enough when we've had all of this fluid and baby in our belly, and we have all this pressure and we can do whatever we want. And then we deliver, and whether it's with a vaginal delivery, you deliver and you don't have that incision to worry about in that healing, but it still is like, oh my gosh, what happened to my core? Like, I can't sit up, I can't, you know, even roll to the side comfortably. All of these things are impacted. Now add on top of that a multi-level healing process for a major abdominal surgery. Yeah, you shouldn't be doing stairs. You know, think about a stair climber for a workout. Like, it's a workout.
Yeah.
So no, we don't want you doing that 3 days after delivering, or we don't want you walking, you know, a 200-meter walk to go back to your bedroom, get a water bottle or diapers, and come all the way back to where you are recovering with baby. So I think that's really important in highlighting, especially for cesarean, but no matter what's going on, to make sure that you work with the family to set those things up.
And there's like a general rule with birth is that, you know, it's 1 week in bed, 1 week on the bed, 1 week around the bed.
Yes.
And then you do what is comfortable for you after that.
Yeah.
And the same rule applies to a cesarean birth, but it's more like 2 weeks in the bed, 2 weeks on the bed, a week around the bed. You know, you've got to give, your incision may look like it's all healed from the outside, and it is, but you don't know what's going on inside of your body, and your body inside still needs time to heal and process, in addition to that wound that you have on your uterus from the placenta. So, you know,
much
it's just
has to happen.
Resting is important for sure.
Yeah, and Victoria, I'll have you add in here in just a second. Lauren, thank you so much for joining us. I know you have to take off here in a few minutes, so thank you for everything you had to add. If you would like to say something before you sign off, and then Victoria will turn back over to you.
Okay. Yeah, just that it's been a pleasure to be part of this meeting again, and meeting a couple new faces today. Alejandra, I don't know if you have any if there's anything you ever wanted to ask me specifically, you can jump in right now and interrupt me if you do. But So it's just been wonderful seeing everyone and always getting a little bit more information every time after reading, a dozen books and like, okay, how much more can there be? Oh, there's more. Okay. This is going to be a lifelong learning through this. So
absolutely. Well, thank you so much, Lauren, and I hope you have a fabulous night, and we'll see you on the next Meet the Doula or the next event we have.
Yes, thank you all so much. Have a wonderful night.
Victoria, so what else did you want to add to us or to our conversation for the cesarean hospital birth doula support?
Yeah, I was going to say postpartum wise, as you all were talking about the level of floors and just having your basket near, I was thinking more about the lactation world and the kinds of positions that you could be in with baby. I remember I just forgot that there was like eight to 20 different kinds of ways I could throw baby around and do things I needed to do in the home. And yeah, that's gonna look a lot different when you have a giant wound that's healing, and the biological nursing, laid back nursing, football position, these things are really gonna help improve the quality of life. So I just wanted to throw that in there.
Absolutely, and I think like you were talking about earlier, like we were talking about earlier, as we're going through these prenatal appointments, if we know we're planning for a repeat cesarean or for a first-time cesarean for whatever reasons they permit, then those are also things that we can start to review during those prenatal appointments, right? So that's one more benefit to signing on with a doula earlier in your pregnancy, or I personally believe the earlier the better, because you just have more time to build that relationship and more time to understand what's to come. And so if we're going over breastfeeding positions at, a 20-week appointment because it's already been determined that medically that's what's necessary, or that's what a family is choosing, or whatever the situation is, then we've got another 17 to 20 weeks that we can work on finding whatever breastfeeding solutions you may need, or whatever other tools and research you want to go over to really prepare yourself as much as possible at the point of feeding. So yeah, I think that's really important that you highlighted that, Victoria, so thank you for that. The next thing I have is how would a doula work with me if I'm planning a home birth? And I feel like this has again been highlighted quite a bit, so we'll stay brief with this one because I do have some questions from community members that I want to be sure we get to. But what would major differences be for a home birth client? Sarah, you said that your first birth was with a VBAC home birth client, correct?
Yes.
So what did your support look like for her or for that family?
She had a few tools, and we didn't end up using much of them. She found just being at the edge of the bed for every contraction was what really worked for her. And, being at home, I think for her, she had her first birth, she wanted a home birth as well, and then end up transferring. But, this one, we just, there was a lot more moving around, and there is the, ability to eat and drink and lay down comfortably, for the couple minutes in between contractions, and, things like that. So I think more just comfort measures are easier to handle in that kind of environment.
Absolutely, and I think you said the availability to eat and drink, and I think so far all of the home births that I've been on, it's not even like the availability, but there is a strong encouragement from the midwife team and from the doula and from the partner to eat and drink, because you're going to be putting out so much energy, and we want to maintain a stamina for the birthing person, right? We don't want you to be having like a blood sugar crash because you haven't eaten during the 12-hour labor that you've been going through, or whatever it is. So I think whereas most hospital births, you are told to stop eating, and you're either using IV fluids to stay hydrated, or you might be getting to drink a little bit or eat ice chips or what have you. In the home birth setting, there tends to be a lot of encouragement of eating and drinking so long as the birthing person is up for it. And in the most recent birth I was part, actually both okay, anyways, in some of the home birth settings, it becomes a fun little thing too for the births I've been a part of has been a birthing woman and then her husband. And so for all of these births, the husband was making the last meal for the mom before she became a mom on the outside, and is feeding mom in between contractions or whatever it is. And it becomes this really fun play between the two of them, and a care and oxytocin. We love it for birth. So you get all those feel-good hormones going, and it's so beautiful to watch from the outside. And I feel like it's almost like I need to close the curtains or like hide and just give them their moment, because it is just another piece of connection that they can have during that home birth process. One thing I know that has really been emphasized for the home birth process for myself, and then Ashley and Victoria, if you guys want to add anything, is I come over as soon as you need me. And I think when you're at home, that's a little bit more comfortable than when you're at the hospital, because you don't want to call someone over to the hospital too early, or you don't want to go to the hospital too early. But at home, it's like, yeah, call me. I can hang out on your couch if you aren't really in active labor, but you feel some things that you're not comfortable feeling by yourself. Call me, I'll come over. I'll, sit on the couch with you, and then you can take a nap if you need to take a nap or whatever it is. And so by the birthing person and the family being in their home, their level of comfort is a bit higher, I think. And so they're a little bit more comfortable doing what they need within that space. Ashley, do you want to add to that?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with you in that is the person's mentality, is that it's less bothersome for their doula to come earlier in labor than if they're at home than in the hospital. But I think it's just important to emphasize with them that it doesn't matter what their setting is, that, I mean, it's even in most, if not all of our contracts, we come when they call, and it doesn't matter where they're at. So I think it's just important to emphasize that, and to let birthing people know that if you're having a hospital birth, you can have all the things that you want to have that you would have at home in the hospital. You just have to be more diligent in advocating for yourself for those things and letting the staff know. To touch on that a little bit, but I think one of the biggest differences in having a home birth is that it's personal and private. And, unless the birthing person wants to have their mom and dad and aunt and cousins and sister and this whole, all the family and friends over during their labor and birth, that generally doesn't happen in a home birth. And there's less interruptions, there's far less monitoring of the baby, and not because that's, not to say that that's a dangerous thing, but the monitoring that happens in the hospital is just not necessary unless it's necessary. It's overly done. Exactly. And so, when you're planning for a home birth, your midwife comes over and spends the entire hour with you, sometimes more. And sure, you'll be at your OB's office for an hour, but you're really only spending 10, 15 minutes with them, asking a couple questions, and him reviewing or her reviewing your weight and commenting on that. But you get real personalized care with a home birth if you're choosing that direction. So it's different in the hospital supporting someone, because there is more opportunity for medical intervention to happen, more opportunity for doctors or nursing staff to come in and tell you what needs to happen next. But at a home birth, a lot of the time, the midwives are just sitting back. They're just letting the birthing process unfold in the way that it needs to, naturally, physiologically, calmly, quietly. And in a hospital setting, it's hard to have that, because nurses do come in every 20, 30, 40 minutes to check on you. So it's usually more calm, more quiet, and more personal in a home birth setting, for sure.
Thank you. Victoria, did you want to add to that a little bit?
Sure. Well, as Ashley's talking, I recalled my mentor for the postpartum program I'm in. She was basically equating like this intimate experience we're having called birth and labor, especially active labor, like as if we were making love, and we're in this raw, like primal state, and then somebody comes in and it's like, oh, hi, I just wanted to turn the lights on real quick and just make sure that the room looks okay and everything. And you know where I'm going with this. It's like the more interventions that happen, sometimes they may be unnecessary, and also they could lead to some like physical impacts that might not be what the intention was, because the intention is to protect and monitor any liability issues. But yeah, that's just kind of one of the differences that I thought of.
Yeah, I know when I'm talking about different things with the family that I'm working with, I will I'll tell them, you know, what got baby out will likely, or what got baby in will likely help get baby out. So some kisses, yes. Some hands on the birthing person from their support person.
Nipple stimulation.
Yeah, and so like you're saying, yes, a birth with too many check-ins and too much disruption can be like trying to make love with a toddler coming in and out of the room every 5 minutes. Like, it's just, I mean, we can get it done, but it's probably not going to be near as great as if it was just me and you.
Well, there just might be, yeah, like in my own hospital birth, I know there was some stalling happening because there were moments of not feeling as, I wouldn't say it was safe. I felt very safe, especially with the fetal monitor and everything, like telling me all the, you know, heart monitorings, but there was just like this interruption happening. And I was like, I just want a moment to dance with my partner, you know? And then of course I was going to mention too about the midwife and making sure that relationship with your doula is there, and helping the client find the right midwife for them, because they're a team. Yeah, so.
Absolutely. And I think, you know, it's easy to say in a hospital setting or in a OB setting, oh yeah, just keep finding new care providers, just go, go, go. The same goes for a midwife, and the same goes for a doula. I am not going to be the best doula for every single person I meet, and that is perfectly acceptable. And I'm going through my appointment, and as I leave my first consult with a person, I'll say, and here's a business card, or here is a website where you can go to and search other doulas. I have no shame in that, because I know the best way for this person to be supported is for them to find the best match. And so, yeah, making sure that from any care provider that you're seeing or any support person that you're working with, they need to be the best match for you, and not just the best on Yelp or the best, referral you've gotten from your friends. And so I think, yeah, that's definitely important to highlight too. Thank you for adding that. The next thing I'm going to do, so doula packages on the Central Coast can range from, depending on who you're working with, what types of services you're working with, and things like that. They can range from anywhere from $300 up to $1,200, $2,000 if you're working with like a doula team. And so depending on what types of services you're looking for, the cost point can vary. I know quite a few doulas on the Central Coast also offer sliding scale, or can do almost like some pro bono kind of work. It depends. So if you are interested in doula services, reach out to the doula that you connect with the most on the internet, and then schedule a consult with all of the doulas that you connect with. Ask questions, ask what types of financial programs they might have, or payment plans or whatever, and find what works, because very few doulas that I know and that I recommend are going to turn away a client that really needs their support and really clicks well with them simply because of finances. So I'm not going to spend too much more time there, because I think it is so variable depending on who you're working with and what types of services that you're working with. And we only have 30 minutes left, and we have questions coming in from other people, so I want to make sure we get to what the community is actually asking about too. So the next question that I have came in and is, what are the requirements to become a doula? I know we've all talked about different certifications that we have gone out and received. As doulas, there isn't one certifying body, and there isn't like a license that we have to have or anything else. And so I think one of my favorite things to encourage people to look at is the excitement to continue learning, the availability of a doula to say when they don't know something and that they're going to go educate themselves and get that education to you, I think can be far more important, in my own opinion, than just saying that, you know, I got certified by this big body, or I have whatever shiny thing it is. So I think, you know, Ashley, you've done a tremendous job, and as I've made my way into the doula world, I am constantly like, oh, Ashley's so amazing with this, and she's learning about this. Like, it's a very big motivator. And I think that you do a tremendous job of just sharing that you don't know it all, but you're going to continue learning. And based on the clients that you interact with, you're going to go above and beyond to get that information. And I think that is so important and such a breath of fresh air to me. So, you know, if you guys have anything to add to what is required, you can, but basically nothing is necessarily required to be a doula, but all of the doulas here are going out and seeking training, and we are continuing to educate ourselves, and we all come in with our own birth experiences, or we come in with our motivating reason of why we became a doula. So that's what I have to say about that. Ashley, and then Victoria, I see you want to jump in here as well.
Yeah, you had mentioned, you know, there isn't anything that's really required, and it's more that you don't have to be certified to be a doula. You just need to have the passion and then work on your experience and gaining knowledge in what physiological birth is all about. And depending on, you know, what kind of market you're going for, you know, making sure that you are constantly and consistently learning within that market, whether how narrow or broad it is. But since we do have someone on here who might be curious about, if you are going for certification, what are the requirements for you to be certified? I think it's important to kind of touch on that briefly. And there are a lot of certifying agencies out there that have different requirements, but most of them are marginal. If you're going with some of the larger certifying agencies like DONA and CAPA, CBI, Cornerstone Doula Trainings, Free Birth Society, etc. So to be certified, generally you would go through a workshop, whether that's 1 or 2 workshops that are usually 2 to 3 days long. In those workshops, you would learn a great deal of information. You get to walk away with a workbook as well, so that you can continue refreshing your memory on what it is that you just learned. Once you complete that workshop, you have a list of books that are required for you to read. You don't have to read them all. They require sometimes anywhere between 2 to 5 books, and then you have to write about those books, whether it's a reflective type of essay or how that book that you read is going to help you better serve your birthing community. You need to attend anywhere between 1 to 3 births and be the main doula for that birth. And usually you would need to write a reflective essay detailing that birthing experience. And there are some other kind of essays, like, you know, looking at your community, what is available, what is the cost for it, and then write your own experience with your own birth, and kind of create an essay for that and turn it in. And then once all of that is reviewed, and you work usually one-on-one with an instructor, then you have that completed, you turn it all in, they review it, you take a mad amount of quizzes and tests as well, so that you can, you know, assure them that you are retaining the information that you've learned, and that you are well on your way with your knowledge base to become a doula. And then they issue you a certification. So that's generally what the process is like, and the requirements that are there for you to get your certification as a doula.
Yes, awesome. And Victoria, do you want to add to that?
Sure. Yeah, I think Ashley covered it pretty thoroughly as far as if there is someone who watches the recording or who's with us tonight that says, what is exactly involved in certification and what does that look like? So that was great, Ashley, thanks. I would say that maybe what I could add is mentorship and experience. Those two things are definitely not to be underestimated. So that's not just how many births do I have under my belt, but like, what have you done to support your birthing community? And that could look like consultations for postpartum or preconception, or, you know, the end of life stuff, or the abortion or miscarriage, any loss. You know, there's so many types of experiences that I think doulas can have. And usually what I've found in getting to know other doulas is there's something that's pulled at their heartstrings and some experience they've had that's really kind of rite of passage them into the doula work. So I would encourage anyone looking for doulas to really kind of get more detail on their experience of their work, and then just who their mentors are, like who they're leaning on for support, you know, even if they're a new doula like myself into this birth work industry, so to speak. So yeah, anyway, that's
Awesome.
what I have.
I know with my certification process as well, there was a requirement to connect with the local community and to figure out what resources you have, and to create, to come up with almost like a directory so that you know where to direct your clients depending on what they may need. And so I think that's really important as well. Most certification processes, you're at least expected to do some of the legwork to see what's in your local community. The next question that I have is, so we have a question about what are some common questions to ask a doula before hiring them. And what I would like to do with that is I'm going to ask each of our doulas that are here to send in, I'll send you guys a follow-up email to send me what are common questions, and we'll create our own Meet the Doula Common Questions sheet, and I can go ahead and share that on our Central Coast Childbirth Network page, and we'll get that information out that way. Because I think that is some very valuable information, and having it in like a little cheat sheet would be very beneficial for our families. So we will table that for follow-up. The next thing that I want to ask is, let's see, good job guys. We already handled what other areas do doulas focus in, and is postpartum a finite window? So way to go. We handled that just because that's where conversation went. We have a question about insurance. And so this specific question asks if doulas accept TRICARE insurance. I think in general, though, we can talk about insurance, whether it's Anthem Blue Cross, Kaiser, TRICARE, SenCal. You know, right now, my understanding, the last time I looked at it, with the specific family I was working with and their insurance, it was not covered by insurance. I know for myself, when I hired my doula and was doing my home birth, I used my FSA, our flexible spending account, to reimburse myself or our family for the expenses. So if you have an FSA, or we're coming up on open enrollment, so if you want to sign up for an FSA for next year because you know you're pregnant and going to be delivering next year, an FSA is, again, a flexible spending account that your employer has to offer, and basically you can take a certain dollar amount out of your paycheck. Pre-tax, it goes into this FSA account, and then after you submit payments for medical expenses, you can reimburse yourself from this FSA account. So it's not that you're getting free money, it's not that it's 100% covered, it basically alleviates some tax liability on your taxable earnings. But it feels like you're reimbursing yourself because you never see the money, because it leaves your paycheck and goes to this FSA account anyways, and then later you reimburse yourself and you see money come in. So it felt good to me since my insurance couldn't cover it. So if anyone has that available, you can at least feel happy because you see money coming in. Does anyone else have any experience with trying to get doula care covered by any insurances locally?
Most of the major insurance companies do not cover doula work. And a great deal of it is because it's not a medical field. So they don't see any reason to, unfortunately, cover for doula support. However, there have been some instances, not locally, but some that I've seen floating around where there's the Christian United healthcare insurance companies where basically you pay a very minimal fee every month for this insurance, depending on your family size. And how that works is, let's say you go to MedStop, you pay MedStop for your visit, then you submit the bill to Christian United Healthcare. There's other ones out there, but that's the one that's coming to mind right now. And they reimburse you for the full amount. So there have been some instances that I've heard where some birthing families have submitted payment receipts for their doula support and have been reimbursed for them. But again, that isn't anything that I've seen locally. And I can't quite remember which of the Christian United Healthcare, I'm just using that because that's the only one that comes to mind, that name, but one of those models of insurances that isn't something like Blue Cross or TRICARE or some of the other larger corporate insurance companies. A few people, very few people have been reimbursed for that. So, but the last time I looked into it, and with some of the families I've worked for, insurance will not cover doula support, unfortunately.
Yes, maybe one day, but
maybe one day.
Victoria, did you want to add anything to that, or did Ashley wrap back around to what you were going to say? Oh, you're muted.
Yeah, we're not required as doulas to follow HIPAA guidelines. However, it's really encouraged, especially if you're following things like the codes of conduct for these certification doula organizations. So that was one thing. And I think it could lead to us being more insured someday if we followed those guidelines. And then this is an out of the box idea for people who, I mean, the conversations around coverage and trying to not pay out of pocket. What about for people who are pregnant, asking in your baby shower or your little registry for gift certificates for doulas? I think that is something I really greatly encourage, because I just really don't think that the infant needs like 5 cute onesies, you know, over something that could be this beneficial and impactful for the rest of their journey as a parent. So yeah.
Absolutely. I love that you touched on that. I know personally I have recommended that. And as doulas, even creating, you know, if a family has reached out, they want services, but they don't know how they're going to come up with payment. And they mentioned, like, maybe I could ask my family. I speak for myself, I'd be more than happy to like create a little thing that's cutesy that you can send out to family and friends with your, you know, virtual baby shower or in-person baby shower announcement and things like that. So there's definitely ways that you can work with that to make sure that it still is fun and exciting, and the people who are adding to that, you know, doula fund feel like they're doing something special. But yeah, that's a great way to have it covered is, you know, we don't need 3 strollers. We don't need all the baby onesies. I don't need the crawling toys and the bumbo and all those things when my baby is a newborn. Like, we just need to be taken care of. So beautiful. Thank you for adding that to the conversation, Victoria. Sorry, I don't know why I muted myself. Ashley, did you have something to add to that? Or
Yeah, just touching real quick on, you know, babies and onesies and all the different baby gear that we tend to, you know, get wrapped up in from social media and influencers and stuff is that, you know, babies outgrow their onesies usually in a few weeks, if not just a couple months. But a birthing person takes their birth with them for a lifetime. And when you have the right kind of support that you need that fits for your family, the cost really just kind of gets tucked away because it's worth it. It's 100% worth it. If you feel that doula support is right for you, then it's right for you, no matter the cost. And a lot of doulas, if not all the doulas in this area, do payment plans, reduced prices, sliding fee scales, etc. You know, it's a great community of doulas here that really understand how expensive the Central Coast is to live in, and kind of commiserate with birthing families who are looking for doula support but aren't really sure how to pay for it. And then to add on to that, you know, baby registry idea that Victoria was talking about, it's something that a lot of people do ask for in their registry. And I think that's absolutely fantastic. I've also added on my website, you can, if you want to give the gift of a doula, then anyone can just reach out to a doula and say, hey, I want to pay whatever your fee is for this person. And yeah, I think it's just really great when family members and friends recognize how essential a doula can be, whether they've been blessed by one themselves or have heard stories of them and want to give to their family members or friends. So yeah, that's also an option too, is reaching out to a doula and just saying, hey, you know, I want to get this support for this person. Can you help me out?
Yeah, I love that. The last question is, and I don't think there's too much to speak on this one, but is, can you have a doula with twins? Absolutely. Twins, triplets, quads, however many you want. You might need a couple doulas at some point with all of that. But absolutely, yes, we can be there to support you prenatally, immediate postpartum, months down the road once, you know, some family is leaving or other support people, and you're like, okay, I'm 4 months postpartum and I am by myself with the twins or the triplets for the first time and I need some postpartum support. There we are. So yes, you can absolutely have doula support with twins. Do you guys have anything you want to add to that? No? Okay. Alejandra, I know I had reached out to you and you said you were very happy with all of the information that had been shared already, and that you appreciated what all of our doulas had to say today. But if you have anything you would like to ask or share, now is your time.
No, not specifically, but I do, you guys touched on something so I just moved to the area and I'm on my 4th healthcare provider who hopefully will work for me. I am a hopeful VBAC mom, and being new to the area has been difficult because it was like, might as well be in a different country right now because I can't communicate with a lot of people due to the pandemic. But I think I might have finally found a healthcare provider, a medical healthcare provider that might work for me. And I'm still looking for a doula. I'm 17 weeks pregnant now. Ashley, I know we spoke, you are wonderful. But I kind of want to just not fall in love with the first one. But anyway, yeah, this was great, and thank you for hosting this. It's been really helpful, and yeah, I'm still looking and kind of just seeing what the community is like too, and yeah. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, and I'm so happy that we could provide more information and insight. You did remind me of one thing I wanted to touch on before we disconnect from this event, and that is there are 3 different groups on the Central Coast, 3 different hubs, collectives, resource directories, whatever you want to call them, that you can find our local doulas on, besides just like Google searching and coming upon different pages. And so I want to make sure I get the websites correct, or the names. I always struggle with one. Actually, I mean, Sarah, you could probably speak to make sure that I get the one right. So on the Central Coast, I am the founder of SMV Doula Collective. So smvdoulacollective.com. I keep a list of all of the doulas who work within the Santa Maria Valley on that website. So you can go there, you can see pictures, you are directed to those individual doulas pages right off the bat, and so you can connect with them. There is SLO Doula Connection, and I believe that's slodoulaconnection.com as well. And so that is another group that keeps track of doulas in that area that are choosing to be part of that membership. So there might be a few doulas that aren't included on that website if they aren't paying members, but that is another great resource. And then Sarah, this is the one I might need your help on because I always want to jumble the words. It's SLO Birth and Doula Collective, right?
Correct.
Okay, and it's slowbirthcollective.com, I think?
Yes, SLO Birth Collective.
Okay,
Yeah.
and so that is another membership-based directory that you can find that will have some of the other doulas servicing this area. So I think if nothing else, Alejandra and anyone else who is looking for doulas, there are 3 hubs to at least get you started. Google, Yelp, those might throw out some other resources for you, but there are a ton of doulas working to service our area. And of course, we are looking for more doulas. So if anyone has felt that calling and is interested, feel free to reach out to any of us and we can direct you to the resources that we know of in the community. But there definitely are a lot of doulas to connect with and find that right match for you. The last resource I wanted to touch on is, again, the Central Coast Childbirth Network. That is centralcoastchildbirthnetwork.com. And on that website, you can be directed to a variety of other providers. Alejandra, if you do need any help finding other medical providers, if this 4th provider in the area doesn't work out for some reason, do not be ashamed to reach out to us. And I myself would be happy to do legwork for you to connect you with some other providers in the area. And you know, we'll make sure you find the right provider to get you to that VBAC and do the work with you. So if you ladies have anything else to add, please feel free to jump in now. Otherwise, I will go ahead and start closing our event off for the night.
Nothing for me.
All right. Thank you so much, Sarah, for all that you had to share tonight. I appreciate your time. Victoria, did you have anything else to add?
Just that it felt really good to sit with doulas tonight. And you know, I know a lot of people are going to watch the recording and might not have been here with us, but I mean, today has been a big day. We're being asked as a country, I think, to just, we're like all pregnant right now, I think, trying to drum up as much strength as we can. So it just feels good to be around doulas who are heart-centered and can work quickly on their feet and just adaptive. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Victoria. I really appreciate all you had to share. And I would love to connect with you on some of your training and kind of your brain flow, because I feel like there's some hippy dippy stuff we could really nerd out on. So I'm excited for that.
Yes, I'm here for it.
I see you. Ashley, thank you so much for all that you had to share with us today. And again, just your experience and your desire to learn is admirable. And I appreciate it so much on a personal level, but also on behalf of our Meet the Doula event today. Do you have anything else you'd like to add before we close off?
No, I just thank you again for allowing me to be here, and just happy to be in this space.
Awesome. Thank you guys so much. I hope you all have a fabulous evening. I will share this recording. We'll get it up on our YouTube, and we will let you guys know when it's available to share with anyone else. All right. Thank you guys. Have a great night.